Hey BT Kids, like always we are going to look at our questions from kids, from you guys, not adults, from you guys. And today's question, somebody asks, I want to tell others about Jesus, but I get nervous. What should I say? Well, before I answer your question, let me just say that it is totally okay to be a little bit nervous when talking about your faith. I'm an adult and I still get nervous sometimes, so it is perfectly normal. We just need to look out and make sure that our nervousness doesn't silence us from sharing our faith, and we can also use it as a chance to look to God for removing that fear. Now, what should you say? There's not one perfect way to go about this to tell someone about Jesus. I encourage you to just be yourself during that time, no matter how scary it might seem. What you can tell others is that Jesus loves you and that they also love your friend, and you can also tell them all the ways Jesus has blessed you in your life and how important he is to you. A grown-up word for that is testimony, which is the story of how you discovered Jesus Christ and how you have become different since then. It sounds pretty simple when put like that, right? Telling others about Jesus is really just a conversation with that person about how awesome he is and how he has changed us and why we love him. Kids, if you have any questions, I want you to talk to your parents. And parents, us here at BT Kids would also love to answer any questions you may have through this digital platform. Hey kids, welcome to my photography studio. You know, a large percentage of the photo shoots I do are kids' portraits. Parents love to have pictures of their children as they grow up. It can be lots of fun to look back at how we used to look or what we used to be interested in. Kind of like this. Or this. Yep, that too. One day, each of you will be an adult, and chances are the adults in your life will say things like, I can't believe how grown up you are.
Where is the time gone?
By getting pictures of you now, your parents, grandparents, or teachers can hold on to their memories of you as a child a bit more clearly. You know, this reminds me of a Bible story. The Bible doesn't contain a lot of information about Jesus as a child, but there are a few stories. The Bible even tells us that Jesus' mother held on to these memories of Jesus as a child and treasured them in her heart. We'll learn more about that today in our Bible story.
Hey, it's me, Megan, and this is Jessie. Jessie. Jessie, oh, hi. Hey, Megan, can you help me? I can't find Maya. Who is Maya? Maya is my new pet mouse. I'm sorry, your pet what? Mouse. Maya the mouse. Why did you get a mouse for a pet? Megan, Maya is so cute and cuddly. I can't wait for you to meet her. Great. Oh, I know where Maya is. She's at my house. In her cage. I forgot. Oh well, guess I'll just have to meet Maya another time. Yep. I'm so glad she isn't lost. Hey, you know what? In today's Bible story, Mary and Joseph thought they had lost Jesus, but he wasn't lost at all. Listen to the Bible story to find out where Jesus was when Mary and Joseph found him. After Jesus was born, wise men came to Bethlehem to worship him as king. When they left, an angel told Joseph in a dream to leave Bethlehem because King Herod wanted to hurt Jesus. So Mary, Joseph, and Jesus went to Egypt until Herod died. They went back to Israel and lived in Nazareth. Jesus grew up in Nazareth. Every year, Jesus' parents took a trip to Jerusalem for a special celebration called Passover. On Passover, the Jewish people got together to remember when God saved his people from slavery in Egypt. They celebrated all the things God had done for them. When Jesus was 12 years old, he went with Mary and Joseph to Jerusalem. After the celebration, Mary and Joseph started to go home. They traveled with a large group of people, but Jesus was not with them.
Mary and Joseph thought that Jesus was somewhere in the group, but he had stayed behind in Jerusalem. Mary and Joseph walked for a whole day. Then they started looking for Jesus. They searched among their friends and family, but they could not find Jesus anywhere. Mary and Joseph hurried back to Jerusalem. They looked for Jesus, but they could not find him. Jerusalem was a big city, and Jesus was just a boy. Finally, Mary and Joseph found him in the temple. Jesus was listening to the teachers and asking them questions. The people were surprised at how much Jesus understood. Jesus' parents were surprised too. Mary said, "Son, why have you done this? Your father and I were worried. We've been looking everywhere for you." Jesus asked, "Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know that I had to be in my Father's house?" Mary and Joseph did not understand what Jesus was talking about. Jesus went home with Mary and Joseph. He always obeyed them, and Mary remembered these things. Jesus grew taller and wiser. God was happy with him, and so was everyone who knew him. Jesus came to earth to do God's plan, and even as a boy, Jesus knew that. Jesus got ready to do what God sent him to do. God sent Jesus into the world to die on the cross and rescue people from sin.
Well, good morning, boys and girls. I know that we're not meeting at church, but we had talked about that before, that the church is not the building, it's the people that come into the building. Today, you're having church right there at home, hopefully with your mom and dad nearby, so they can hear the lesson that's being taught today. Our big question for this unit has always been about the genealogy of Christ. The question was, how is Jesus different from any other man? Well, my genealogy, I can tell you, is me, I'm Isauro Medina. My father is Basilio Medina, and my grandfather was Isauro Medina. I don't know beyond that, but people can trace their genealogy all the way back to, oh my gosh, I don't know how far back. But you know what? Jesus' genealogy was very different from anybody else, because Jesus' genealogy was Jesus, God. He's the Son of God. And so his genealogy is very different. That's why the answer for that is, how is Jesus different from any other man? Jesus is fully man, but he's also fully God. And that's where today's story is going to be taking place. We're looking today at several different things. One is we're looking at the life of Jesus. He's growing up as a little boy, as you saw in the story today. But let's go back a little bit. A few months ago, we talked about Moses. And Moses had a job to do, that God sent him back to Israel after he heard the people of Israel crying out for a rescue. And God decided to send Moses. And Moses' job was to go to Pharaoh and say what? Those famous words, "Let my people go." And Moses thought, well, it's going to be pretty easy. God's sending me over there. I'm going to tell Pharaoh, "Let my people go." He's going to say, "Sure, go ahead and go." But guess what? Pharaoh said no. He said no, and then no again, and he kept saying no, until finally God sent some plagues to Egypt that caused a lot of damage. But the final plague was going to be a really, really bad one. It was the plague regarding the firstborn of every man and beast. God was going to kill the firstborn male in every family. But there was a way to rescue the people of Israel. He told them to get a lamb, a spotless lamb, without any defect in it, and to kill that lamb and to get the blood from the lamb and put it on the doorpost of the house and on top of the door. And when the plague came through and the angel of death came through, it would pass over the house. And that's where they got the name Passover from. And that's very important, because today's story has to do with the Passover. It became an annual festival, and people would come from all over the place back to the city of Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. And in today's story, we have that. We have Jesus walking along with Mary and Joseph, his mom and dad. They're coming into Jerusalem from their hometown of Nazareth. Now, back then, they couldn't get in a bus. They couldn't get in an airplane and just fly over there. They had to walk. And some of you guys get tired walking from here to the corner. They had to walk for days to get to where they were going. And so when they walked, they didn't walk by themselves. They walked in a group. And it could be a whole family. It could have been a community. But we know that there was a group walking with Mary and Joseph. It could have included his friends, their family members. But they were walking, and usually the adults walk first and the kids are playing around behind them. But they're all going towards the same place. And they arrive in Jerusalem. And after the Passover is done, they were there to celebrate the Passover. They started to walk back home again. Again, the adults were walking together talking about what they did and how the trip went, and the kids were running around. But it took a long time for them to get to where they were going. But at the end of the day, when they stopped to rest, Mary and Joseph start looking for Jesus. Now, can you imagine? I mean, when my kids were little, I remember that we went one time, we went to Fredericksburg. And we were with a bunch of people. We were with several other families from BT. We had gone camping, but we had gone into the city to do some shopping. And we got out of our Suburban and we started walking down the road. And it didn't take very long before I started counting the kids. And I go, hey, wait a minute. I'm missing one. Where's my son, Andrew? And we couldn't find him. We asked the kids, is he with you? No, he was with you. And nobody knew where he was. So I started to walk backwards where I came from, retracing my steps. And I finally got back to the Suburban, and in the back seat, asleep, was Andrew. Now, I thank God he was asleep, but you know what? It could have been something very dangerous. So I can imagine how Mary and Joseph were feeling, that they haven't seen Jesus all day. And look, I found Andrew in about 15 minutes. The Bible tells us that Mary and Joseph were looking for Jesus for 3 days. Now, I don't know about them, but 3 days looking for my son, that would have been really, really hard for me. But when they found him in the temple, and he was talking to the people there. He was asking the teachers questions, listening to them, and then asking them questions. And I love the way the Bible says it in Luke 2, chapter 2, verses 46 and 47. It says this: after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And then 47 says, and all those who heard him were astounded at his understanding and his answers. Can you imagine this? You have a little boy there, sitting with these men who have been raised, learning the law, memorizing the law. And he's talking to them. See, can you imagine asking a question about the Messiah when you're talking to the Messiah? They didn't know that. They didn't know that Jesus was the Messiah. But Jesus was answering all these questions because he knew all the answers. And I can imagine these men going, who is this kid? How does he know all these things? The Bible says they were astounded. They didn't understand. How could a child know more than we do as adults? But it's because of who he was. Jesus was not only the son of Joseph and Mary, he was the Son of God. And that's the greatest thing for us to remember, that Jesus came to this world and he obeyed his mom and dad, but he also obeyed his father, because in verse 49 it says here, when they found him, they said, why? He asked them, why were you searching for me? He asked them, didn't you know it was necessary for me to be in my Father's house? See, Jesus knew what he was called to do. He was sent to this earth to do something, and that plan had to unfold. And it meant he had to start doing what his Father had sent him to do. But he also had to obey his mom and dad. So the Bible tells us that he went back with them and he obeyed them. You know, as we go into the story of Jesus, we're going to see the many miracles that he did. We're going to see the things that he could do that nobody else could do. We're going to see the God in him show off in many of his miracles. But we're also going to see that he was always obedient to the law and to his parents. Boys and girls, as we learn about Jesus, let's remember the Bible tells us that we are to obey our mother and our father just the way Jesus did. And now that you're home, not able to go to school, you're home all day, I'm sure mom and dad are asking you to do stuff. Remember, just the way Jesus obeyed his mom and dad, he expects you to obey yours. We'll see you next week.